Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Ann Emanuel. Revitalization continues in downtown Elmira, and the City Council may have just picked their next project. Big Fox's Josh Feldberg reports the latest on Riverfront Park.
At this week's Elmira City Council meeting, members approved a resolution for improvements to Riverfront Park. Riverfront Park winds its way down Water Street and alongside the Chemung River. With its prime location and lovely views, a small makeover could bring new life to this section of downtown. The $87,000 resolution would be used to redesign a portion of the park and fix worn-down features. Turtle Leaf Cafe sits right across the street from Riverside Park. Every day, cafe workers get to see how the community utilizes the park.
We do see a lot of people in the summer and the spring that are like walking their dogs or playing with their kids or kind of sitting on the bench and hanging out.
While having the park across the street is beneficial for Turtle Leaf Cafe, a few improvements could go a long way to bringing more traction to East Water Street.
I definitely think seating would be super helpful. We do have some seating during the summer, but just to have more of an option of like tables and chairs for people to be able to eat and hang out by the water, I think would be really great.
The City Council has yet to approve any specific plans or designs for the park. But with new available funds, a new version of Riverfront Park may be just around the corner. Josh Feldberg, Big Fox News, Elmira.
2 Steuben County men arrested following an investigation by state police into a string of burglaries. Adam Hosmer and John Janelli both facing a number of charges and were sent to Steuben County Jail without bail. According to state police, the pair was involved in multiple recent burglaries of hunting cabins, storage units, and stolen vehicles. The investigation remains ongoing. A COVID outbreak happening at the Chemung County Nursing Facility in Elmira. According to the facility, 22 residents have tested positive, as well as 5 staff members. The facility is in contact with the State Department of Health and is asking for Elmira residents to temporarily stay away from the facility. Senator Dick Durbin vowing Supreme Court ethics reform must happen, whether the court participates in the process or not. Lucas Tomlinson has the story.
In about 2 weeks, the COVID-19 public health emergency declaration will end. But before turning the page, Congress is flipping back to the early days of the pandemic.
The effect on children has been vast, and to have no remorse on closing schools and keeping them closed for the length of the time is unconscionable.
On Wednesday, a subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic zeroed in on school closings, putting the head of the country's second largest teachers union on the spot.
Knew that remote education was not a substitute for opening schools, but we also knew that people had to be safe.
Some Republicans accuse her and the American Federation of Teachers of influencing the CDC's school reopening guidelines, potentially negatively affecting students.
Do you remember how many edits that you suggested?
We suggested concepts, sir.
We are here to examine partisan allegations by House Republicans seeking to vilify our nation's dedicated educators.
AFT President Randi Weingarten says her union did nothing wrong.
It was not only appropriate for the CDC to confer with educators, it would have been irresponsible for them not to.
Dr. Anthony Fauci is also pushing back on the criticism that he shut down schools.
It was a personification of me as a person who essentially closed everything down.
As Congress conducts hearings, a report from the COVID crisis group blames a lack of disaster preparedness for the unraveling of the country's response, adding the nation is still not ready for the next pandemic. In Washington, Madeline Rivera, Fox News.
Elmira drivers are being asked to drive carefully around the city as multiple milling and paving projects are underway. Both Church Streets and North Main Street are replacing the top few inches of asphalt, and the work won't be complete until May 16th. Businesses will remain open on these streets for foot traffic, but the roads may be unavailable for motorists due to the ongoing construction. It's been a rough day for the head of the nation's second largest teachers union, Randi Weingarten. She was bombarded with questions from lawmakers over why she advocated for extended school closings during COVID. Critics say she was putting teachers ahead of students, and students are still paying the price. Madeline Rivera reports from Washington.
You're sitting at a restaurant, the conversation's getting good, and a waiter comes by and tells you you've exceeded your time limit. I know it sounds uncommon, but it's part of a growing trend here in New York City.
I don't usually stay 90 minutes at a restaurant.
So you think it's uncommon to stay beyond that time?
Yes, it is.
So if they told you this, you would understand, you said?
Yes, I would.
Luckily for this customer, imposing a 90 minutes dining limit wouldn't be the worst news. But for a few of her peers who have sat in her spot, the new change of pace could take some adjusting to.
They were here almost 4 hours. This happened last week.
Hassan Sinyort, the managing partner at Serena's, has seen that 90 minutes evolve into almost half a typical work shift firsthand. But of course, as business owners work to manage their reputations as friendly and accommodating, enforcing that time limit gets a little muddy.
When we need the tables, but we don't get the table, we can't tell people to leave. We will never do that.
Multiple guests overstaying their welcome adds up for business owners. Taking into account the rising cost of food and supplies, paying employees, that time is quite literally money. With spring blooming, Serena's expects their number of guests every night to pick up with the warmer temperatures, but they won't have to physically keep their own tabs on their guests' time in the restaurant.
I don't think any of this surprises me or is a bother to my day-to-day.
Emma Orlo reports on the New York's restaurant scene daily, but says this isn't a New York-specific issue.
I think you're seeing it in cities all around the country. I would guess it's happening more at restaurants that maybe are a little bit pricier or trendier.
The only worry for Sinyort is if enforcing the new measure will result in negative reviews.
Okay, here's a good question. How long is too long to dine at a restaurant? In New York City, some diners are taking their time. So now restaurants are giving them a time limit to sit and eat. A time limit. Kendall Green explains.
The time frame to avoid a debt default may have gotten a lot tighter. New analyses show that deadline could now come in early June because of lower than expected tax receipts. And Congress is working around the clock
Video come to order
to make sure the country can pay its bills.
We have to end Washington's reckless spending habits.
House Republicans are growing more confident about their bill, which raises the debt limit by $1.5 trillion while slashing spending. They made tweaks overnight to win over some GOP holdouts, like tightening work requirements for social safety net programs and altering provisions to ethanol tax credits to win over Midwestern lawmakers.
Our district is very heavy with corn and ethanol and biodiesel and soybeans. We have a lot of farmers and investments in those that we need to protect.
But it remains to be seen whether McCarthy has the votes. At least one GOP member says she's still a no.
From a spending perspective, it's weaker than what I believe it could be.
A report from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates the legislation could cut government deficits by $4.8 trillion over 10 years. However, the White House says the Republicans' bill would hurt Americans.
Democrats also know the meaning of what these budget cuts mean. Are we really talking about cutting veterans' medical care? Because that's what non-defense discretionary is.
McCarthy can only afford to lose 4 Republican votes, but Democratic absences could lower the threshold of yes votes needed to pass the bill. In Washington, Matt Rivera, Fox News.
Your complete forecast is still ahead, plus this.
Testing for Alzheimer's disease is on the rise. I'm Marianne Rafferty with a look at what could be motivating people to learn more about their genetics. Coming up.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
Good evening. Stepping throughout our Wednesday, we were battling those overcast skies and a few light rain showers where we did bring in minimal accumulation. But there is enough moisture within the atmosphere underneath some calm and clear conditions overnight where we will be bringing in a foggy start to our Thursday. Now, note that we're also looking at low temperatures to drop near that freezing mark as well. So a brisk start to the day where we should be holding on to those upper 30s. So note that if you also maybe have some of those potted plants or maybe have started on working on that garden, you may want to protect it from the potential of some frost as you have moisture in the air and those near freezing temperatures. It could create some of that damage to some of that susceptible vegetation. So something to keep in mind as we head into our Thursday morning, but do enjoy your Thursday. Now it's a little chilly of a start, but with the sunshine that will be in place through the entire day, we'll have a near seasonal afternoon. And not only do we just have a nice spring day setting up, but it's going to be potentially one of the last that we have before we head all the way into that first week of May. As what we'll see is that a start of our Friday will be quiet, but then the rainy pattern moves in and then can take us into the end of April, potentially early May. And starting May 1st, we are going to talk about some cooling temperatures. A bit of a wind is going to keep us a little bit more mild into the weekend, and we'll detail that here in just a moment. But at least stepping into our Thursday, as mentioned, we'll have some of that patchy fog to linger through about the mid-morning, but then that sun angle should warm us up, allowing to dissipate that fog and bring temperatures at least into the 50s, and then climbing into those lower 60s for a few locations, which is near seasonal. Seasonal is about the mid 60s. So 62 in Elmira, looking close to that seasonal trend. We have 62 into Binghamton, and then Wayland around about 58 degrees. So a gorgeous day setting up. Enjoy it. Maybe break out the grill for the evening, allow for that sunshine to be a gorgeous one. And then as we head into Friday, we start the day quiet. By the afternoon, the rainfall starts to work its way in. So the day may be quiet to start, but cloud cover will be gradually increasing, will be overcast, and then showers will move in. Now, through 7 p.m. on Friday, we're only expecting maybe a few tenths of an inch. We'll see that more of those moderate showers will be in place throughout the entire weekend. Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be hard to get outdoors, one, due to the gloominess, and then two, it's going to be a little breezy at times as well. We're also going to see wind gusts getting upwards about 30 to 35 miles per hour Saturday and Sunday. But note that where that wind direction is coming from, we have more still of a southeasterly wind. So we're not seeing that the cold air is pushing in right away with this wet weather pattern. We're actually seeing moisture that is building its way off of the Atlantic and pushing in, which is going to keep in some of those more mild temperatures. So although we're wet, we still hang on to upper 50s and even mid 60s through Sunday. Again, it's still mild, but it'll be hard to get outside battling those rain showers. However, it's going to be much better than what we're seeing into May as we do continue some of those rain shower chances, as well as note that looking at falling into those lower 50s will be likely by Wednesday.